What if I told you that the trees in your backyard are having conversations right now? Not with words, obviously, but through chemical signals, electrical impulses, and an underground network so sophisticated that scientists have nicknamed it the Wood Wide Web. And here's the wildest part: some trees can recognize their own family members and actually favor their offspring over strangers. You've probably walked past trees thousands of times without giving them a second thought. They seem so still, so passive. But trees are some of the most socially complex organisms on Earth. They form alliances, share resources, wage wars against pests, and keep ancient friends alive for centuries, all while appearing completely motionless. For a long time, scientists thought plants were essentially biological machines. They respond to light, grow toward water, and reproduce. Simple inputs and outputs, nothing more. But over the past few decades, researchers have discovered something remarkable. Trees don't just exist in forests, they create communities. They build relationships that last centuries. And some scientists now argue they might even possess something resembling intelligence. Let's start underground, because that's where the real magic happens. Beneath every forest floor lies an enormous network of fungal threads called mycorrhizae. These microscopic filaments connect tree roots to each other, sometimes stretching for miles in a single teaspoon of soil. Think of it like an underground internet, except instead of sharing memes, trees share sugar, water, and warning signals. This network has been evolving for over 400 million years. Here's how it works. Trees need minerals like nitrogen and phosphorus to survive. The fungi are incredibly good at extracting these from soil. So the trees make a deal: they trade sugar from photosynthesis for the minerals the fungi collect. Quid pro quo. It's one of the oldest partnerships on Earth. But this fungal network does something even more interesting. It connects trees of the same species and sometimes different species entirely, allowing them to share resources directly. A tree with plenty of water can send moisture to a neighbor experiencing drought. A healthy tree can send energy to a struggling tree nearby. Resources flow through forests like blood through veins, from abundance to need. Ecologist Suzanne Simard discovered something remarkable in the forests of British Columbia. She found that paper birch and Douglas fir trees were exchanging carbon through the fungal network. But here's the twist: the exchange wasn't random. In spring, when birch had leaves and could photosynthesize efficiently, it sent sugar to the fir. In fall, when birch lost its leaves but the fir still had green needles, the flow reversed. It's like they had a seasonal trading partnership that adapted to changing conditions. Now, let me tell you about mother trees, or perhaps grandmother trees, since some have been standing for 500 years or more. These are the oldest, largest trees in a forest, and they play a crucial role in nurturing younger trees. Through the underground network, these matriarchs can detect which seedlings are their own genetic offspring and preferentially send them resources. They quite literally recognize their children. When a mother tree is dying, it dumps its carbon reserves into the fungal network, specifically directing those resources toward its kin. It's like a grandmother making sure her grandchildren receive their inheritance before she passes. Seedlings connected to a mother tree have significantly higher survival rates than isolated seedlings. But wait, it gets stranger. Trees can also communicate through the air using volatile organic compounds. When a tree is being attacked by insects, it releases chemical signals that drift through the forest to neighboring trees. When those neighbors detect the warning, they start producing defensive chemicals before the insects even reach them. They're sounding an alarm that says danger is coming, prepare yourselves. The acacia trees of Africa provide a perfect example. When giraffes start eating their leaves, acacias pump their tissues full of bitter, toxic tannins. But they also release ethylene gas that signals nearby acacias to produce the same defensive chemicals. The giraffes have figured this out, though. They browse upwind, approaching from the direction that won't carry the warning signal. It's an evolutionary arms race in slow motion. This communication system isn't perfect. Some trees are generous sharers while others seem to be freeloaders. There are even orchid species that hack into the fungal network and steal sugar without contributing anything. Nature has its scam artists, and the Wood Wide Web has its own version of hackers. Here's something most people don't know. Trees can actually learn from experience. Trees that survive droughts respond better to future droughts than trees experiencing drought for the first time. Somehow, they remember the stress and activate defensive responses earlier. It's not memory in the human sense, but it's biological learning that challenges our assumptions about plants. Even more remarkable, some trees seem to have distinct personalities. In long-term studies, researchers have noticed that some individual trees are consistently more aggressive competitors, while others are more cooperative. Some grow fast and die young. Others grow slowly, conserving resources and living for centuries. These differences persist year after year, stable characteristics that suggest trees might have something like temperaments. The deeper scientists look, the more complexity they find. There are trees that act as hubs in the network, connecting to dozens of others through the fungal web. These hub trees can link to as many as 47 other trees. Remove a hub tree, and the whole network can fragment, leaving isolated trees struggling to survive. It's remarkably similar to human social networks, where certain people connect diverse groups and hold communities together. So why does any of this matter? For one thing, it completely changes how we should think about forests and conservation. The old model treated trees as individual units: remove one, plant another, everything stays the same. But if trees are networked organisms that depend on fungal partnerships that take decades to establish, then clear-cutting does way more damage than we realized. You're not just removing trees. You're destroying a communication network that took centuries to build. This research also has practical applications for fighting climate change. Old-growth forests with established fungal networks are much better at storing carbon than young plantations. When we understand that trees work together, sharing resources and supporting each other, we can design better reforestation strategies that protect hub trees and preserve underground networks. There's also something profoundly philosophical here about what it means to be an individual. We tend to think of organisms as separate entities, each living its own independent life. But the more we learn about forests, the more blurred those boundaries become. If a tree can share resources with neighbors, recognize its offspring, communicate danger, and form lasting partnerships, where exactly does one tree end and another begin? Some scientists now argue that a forest isn't a collection of individuals, it's a single superorganism, more like a beehive than a group of separate creatures. Next time you walk through a forest, imagine what's happening beneath your feet. For every tree you see above ground, there's a vast network connecting it to dozens of neighbors. Chemical signals drift through the air like invisible warnings. Sugar flows through underground pipelines, sent from rich trees to poor ones. Mother trees nurture their offspring. Strangers form alliances against common threats. It's all happening silently, a complex society operating on a timescale so slow that most of us never notice it. The trees aren't just standing there. They're living, communicating, and cooperating in ways we're only beginning to understand. And in a world that often feels increasingly disconnected, maybe there's something hopeful in knowing that connection isn't uniquely human. It's baked into nature itself, woven into the fabric of life on Earth for hundreds of millions of years. So the next time you see a tree, don't just see wood and leaves. See a node in a vast network, a participant in an ancient conversation that began long before humans existed and will continue long after we're gone. The forest isn't just a collection of individual trees. It's a community, and it's been one this whole time, quietly thriving right under our noses.